and gentlemen, let me also offer my thanks for the opportunity to be here this afternoon and to participate in this forum. There's one area where certainly Herman Schumacher and I would agree firmly. It is that the U.S. beef industry is at a point of critical decision making. While I may have a Denver address today, many of you that I've known in this audience for a long time know that my roots are in southwest Nebraska, and I still have a ranch and cattle feeding operation there that has been part of my family for a couple of generations and still a very central part of my being. So when we talk about the trauma that's going on in this industry today, I will assure you that I have shared your position in looking across the desk at a steely-eyed banker and being told that I've got some problems making those payments. When I see 30-40% of the equity in the cattle that I own or that are in our feed yard dropping, I certainly recognize the kind of economic trauma that we are facing. These are difficult times. This industry certainly has been through difficult times in the past. That doesn't, I don't think, diminish in any way the critical decisions that we're about to make now as to whether or not indeed we will go forward as an industry ready to team up, collaborate together against those competitive forces that are taking our market share, or whether indeed we will continue to divide, whether we will continue to look for our differences rather than our likenesses, and in the end destroy ourselves. I believe that's where we are. I've been asked today to talk a little bit about the beef checkoff program, and I'm going to do that, obviously going to do that briefly this afternoon. But the beef checkoff program put in at the national level in 1986 is one place in which every producer in this industry does come together to contribute, hopefully, to the well-being of his or her industry. So it's appropriate that we be here together this afternoon, and we'll be in other forums across the country with producers just like you, talking about how we're going to use those dollars, if indeed we agree we're going to continue to use them, how we're going to use those dollars to advance our industry. It's a critically important decision. It is a critically important decision, because I believe firmly that, frankly, if we choose to go our separate ways, if we choose to divide, if we choose to no longer join our resources together toward our common good, we will indeed be destroyed. And we will indeed be, as an industry, much like the sheep industry, finding our product less and less favored in the marketplace, consumers walking away from us, and one day finding an industry that really is no longer viable. So I'm concerned. I'm concerned as a producer. I'm concerned as an individual whose roots go back deeply into this industry, and I assure you that I come to this role with the idea of trying to do everything that I can to help improve this industry in a time of real trouble and real turmoil. Let me set up for you just for a moment the way the beef checkoff is collected and comes into the pools from which it is allocated. It's important that you understand that, and it is a place where perhaps I would disagree with Herman's characterization of the relationship between the checkoff and NCBA and how those dollars are allocated. So it's important that you understand this. When you sell a beef animal and that $1 is collected, all of you understand that 50 cents of that goes to your South Dakota Beef Industry Council, where a board of producers from here in South Dakota make a determination as to how those dollars are going to be used. The other 50 cents go to the Cattlemen's Beef Board, a board appointed by the Secretary of Agriculture, who then make determinations as to how that 50 cents will be allocated for use to promote the industry. All of you also understand that this checkoff is established in federal law by the act and order under which it was established, and it has very, very clear limitations on how it can be used. It is to be used for promotion, research, and education of consumers on behalf of the beef industry to try to create that environment in which our product will be sold, try to enhance that environment. In no way was it ever a promise that it would make the entire industry profitable all the time, but it was set up to try to create an environment in which we could move greater volumes of beef, hopefully at higher prices by increasing demand. And certainly we are moving tremendous tonnage of beef through the meat case today. But that's how the program is set up. Now let me talk for just a moment then about how those dollars are allocated today. I asked to be distributed around the room today for your reference a document with a blue cover on it, which has quite a bit of information, and I won't go through all of that line by line with you, but I would ask you simply to turn to a page that looks like this with the big numbers on it, which shows you how those checkoff expenditures are allocated, first by the Cattlemen's Beef Board, then by the QSBCs, are the Qualified State Beef Councils, like your South Dakota Beef Industry Council. There are 45 of those across the country representing state interests, and then the combined totals. A couple of important points that I want to make here is that, as you see in that allocation, clearly the highest allocation that's used, and this is a pattern that's been followed it's been followed every year that the beef checkoff's been in place, to the best of my knowledge. Highest priority use has been on promotion of the product. That takes a number of different forms, from consumer advertising to retail promotion, food service promotion, all kinds of things that, again, try to improve that environment for sale of our beef product to the consumer. Research is an area that, again, has been quite a ways behind promotion, and some folks have suggested to us, here's an area where perhaps we ought to be spending more money to find new beef products, find new ways in which we can case that product and go out and compete head-to-head with chicken in the meat case more effectively. Consumer information, obviously, again, trying to bolster consumer attitudes, and that has always run pretty much second, at least at the QSBC level, second to promotion, always trying to create better understanding of our product, greater confidence in our product, and I can tell you today that based upon recent polling results that we've looked at, we have the highest level of consumer confidence in our beef product today that we've had any year since we started measuring that nearly 6 years ago. Now, when you stop and think about the BSE issue, the E. coli issue, things like that have bombarded our U.S. consumers over the last several months, to have maintained their confidence. Confirmed again yesterday in North Dakota, and some anecdotal evidence from food service representative describing the consumer confidence that he's seen. We have indeed been successful in having consumers believe that their U.S. beef product is a safe, wholesome product. Industry information, foreign marketing, obviously, let me stop at industry information. Again, helping those of us in this industry better understand our product, better participate in this whole process of building demand for our product. Foreign marketing, an area that has been growing dramatically over the last several years as we've had increasing opportunities to move our product internationally. Producer communications, an area some have suggested today perhaps we ought to be beefing up so people have a better understanding of how these dollars are used, but that is where we try to communicate back to the producer how the checkoff dollar has been used. Program evaluation, program development, again, very minor allocations of dollars. Again, then where I would call your attention is in the administration area. At the beef board level, there is a cap of 5% for administration. Every year that the program has been in place, it's run well under that. When you get to the QSBCs and the other contractors, obviously administrative costs run some higher in that they are delivering the program administratively with those dollars. But overall, it's still under 11% in FY95, which is very competitive in any industry. Let me now simply look first more broadly and then at NCBA's use of checkoff dollars. In 1995, we collected about, nationally, we as an industry collected about $81 million, $81.6 million in beef checkoff funds. Let me put that in perspective just a little bit. U.S. population, 248.7 million people. That calculates, in my book, at about 29 cents per U.S. consumer that we are contributing as an industry for the promotion of our product. I don't think I need to tell any of you that are in business in here, that's a very small investment in the promotion and sale of our product, but it's what we have out there to use today. When it comes to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association and their use of those dollars, understand, and again, where I would depart a little from Herman's characterization, when you pay that checkoff dollar, it certainly does not go right to NCBA. It goes to your state beef council, and it goes to the Cattlemen's Beef Board. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and previously the National Livestock and Meat Board, who are charged with creating advertising, promotion, research, and education programs on behalf of the industry, apply to the Cattlemen's Beef Board and to your state beef councils for their support for programs that they lay out for them. If the Cattlemen's Beef Board and the state qualified state beef councils decide they don't want to send those dollars to NCBA, they don't have to. There's no way that you are coerced as a producer to send dollars to NCBA through the checkoff. On the policy side, and John Lacey will talk about this more in a moment, that is the place where indeed if you choose to be a dues payer and you choose to participate in the public policy arena, that's where you can make your investment, which is obviously absolutely voluntary, which you can do directly or through your Cattlemen's organization state by state. But in no way are you coerced to make those investments. Now, let me talk just a moment about the FY97 NCBA budget, which will look for the first time in history at all the dollars that are available in the industry, whether those be federal dollars, whether those be dues dollars, whether those be checkoff dollars coming through these various sources. And it looks like we project about $78 million in FY97 that could be available. 60 million of those in checkoff dollars, 18 million in non-checkoff dollars, both dues and from other sources. We sat down for the first time over the last 2 months and determined how, as an industry, we would allocate those dollars around the beef industry long-range plan, which was the underlying document for the creation of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. So let me go through just quickly. Under quality, which is the whole area of research for new product development, improving quality and consistency of our products, 10.7%. Domestic marketing, 44.3%. Foreign marketing, 29.4%. Information, which is both industry information, consumer information, producer information, 12.1%. Public policy, about 0.5%. This is an area, obviously, where programming doesn't involve buying a lot of materials. Association services, 3%. Administrative costs, we project for FY97 running at 5.6%. Again, a very competitive level. Ladies and gentlemen, I only lay these things out to you to say that these are dollars, whether they're coming from the checkoff or whether you are a dues payer, that are being used, I believe, today as effectively as we can under the circumstances in which we operate in the beef industry. I welcome the opportunity to hear your questions about the way these dollars are used, about the way we're operating as an organization, and let me assure you that I'm anxious to work with all the folks that are up here today to reach consensus on behalf of this industry so indeed we can move forward as aggressively as possible. Jerry, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Let's give a big warm welcome to John Lacey.
Well, thank you, Jerry, and thanks to Johnny Smith. I've appreciated visiting with them about this. I would like to thank South Dakota Cattlemen and also the stock growers for their support of me, not only recently but in the past, because I was the president of the National Cattlemen's Association back in the 1990 year. I have been here and had the opportunity to visit your country, see the national grasslands, go around with Roy Hoff on his buffalo ranch out there when Roy was still alive. One of the greatest experiences of my lifetime. I've not only had the experience of traveling some of your beautiful country here, I've also had the opportunity to purchase some of the best Hereford heifers that I've ever owned out here out of Lemon. And also, as recently as 2 years ago, 3 of us got together and purchased a truckload of good Angus bulls out of your country. So you are known here for some of the greatest cattle, at least in my opinion, and a whole lot of others across this land, and you're to be complimented for that. We, of course, are here today to answer a number of questions. And I think that Herman I think probably I want to just address a couple of things that Herman brought up in the way of the Packers and Stockyards investigation on concentration in their report, and also the commission. Of course, there was 4 people who are CBA or NCA prior to the merger. They acted independently. They are good members of NCBA. We brought those folks out and gave a report to our marketing committee and to our marketing council representatives in Denver a while back. So they did have some input from us in that area, but we in no way had any input as to how they voted or anything like that. With that, let me say that I'm here to discuss NAFTA, GATT, meat labeling, Packer concentration, futures, and et cetera. And et cetera for me is going to be NCBA because that's who I represent. I am your president. I represent the grassroots people. This organization, beyond what some people might believe, is producer directed. I want you all to believe that, and I want you all to hold us to that. It will be consumer focused from here on out, and we need to be consumer driven or consumer focused, but we will be producer directed. It was a merger, of course, of the National Livestock and Meat Board and, as you knew it, NCA, which formed NCBA. It will represent you with 2 divisions, with a firewall in between the 2. We will represent you on the policy side with the volunteers. We'll represent you with checkoff dollars on the marketing side with this new organization. And we will, and our charge is to be sure that we keep those dollars separated and be spent on the marketing side under all the rules, regulations, and laws that are presented under the marketing order. And also on the dues side, those will be spent on policy development for the betterment of the industry. With that, just a small introduction. I realize that many of you folks have a hard time understanding the complicated system by which we have an organization formed for your representation. But today, I would not have time to go into all those things, and we would be more than happy, and will at many of our meetings, or would be happy to come back to a forum such as this and march you through the development and try to give you a better understanding of just exactly how the organization works from the top down or from the bottom up, however you want it. But let's take a couple of the issues today, NAFTA and GATT. I think we can take those both together. NAFTA, of course, was brought about by action of our government, the North American Free Trade Association, eventually including Mexico. This organization, National Cattlemen's Association, prior to, supported NAFTA. The reason being, I think many of the leadership believe, and I think as we do, it is now a global business. Beef is a global business, and we need to address it as that. I think the Canadians and the import across our lines and back and forth certainly probably warranted look at North American Free Trade Agreement. The main thing that we need to do here, we have it, it's here, we're going to live with it, is to be sure that it's fair to our producers here in the States. And we will do that as a national organization. And just as recently as just the other day, we will dispatch one of our representatives to Canada to go along with the Washington cattle feeders on a mission up there to look at the problem we're having by being able to trade the grain on a fair basis. And we will address all those issues as they come up and are pointed out to us, and we will take action. In the Mexican side of the NAFTA treaty, I think barring the collapse of the peso, I think that particular agreement with Mexico would have worked to our benefits. I think we could have went ahead and exported dollar value probably more to Mexico than they would have imported to the United States. I agree with the comments, though, that we have talked about that exports are very, very important to the cattle industry of the United States, not only in the NAFTA area, but also across both oceans into Europe, where and to the Pacific Rim. In all those countries, of course, we're governed under a GATT. The GATT agreement took years and years of negotiations, and it always does, in my estimation, end up where the United States always seems to be the one who takes the brunt of some of the things, and we're the first to accept one thing or the other, and put our producers at times under a disadvantage. Such as, and let me use the example of the hormone ban. Now with GATT and in full force and adopted, we should be able to import some beef into the European community. Unfortunately, we have to go through all the rules and regulations. But we did dispatch some of our representatives over there representing you under GATT, and we now have the hormone ban in the courts, which serves in the WTO, the World Trade Organization court, that we believe will come out with a favorable decision telling the European community they must take our beef. I'm not going to lead you astray to think that it's a panacea going to correct everything, because even with a favorable decision, there's only 10,000 metric tons because of the quota system that they have there will be able to get in to the European community. But it's a place to start, and we will see to it that we are treated as fairly as we possibly can be, and with our representatives or the people who work for NCBA will be on top of that, and also our foreign trade people who are the volunteers are on top of it at all times. Meat labeling. Many years ago, there was a bill about meat labeling brought about, and the organization at that time did support meat labeling. Unfortunately, it was not passed through Congress, and that was that at that time. As far as anything coming about in the present or in the future, your organization will look at it very closely. It will be run through our committee system, and to those people who are at least up to date and astute in the area of labeling, and to see how it would affect our producers. And if it's favorable, I'm sure that we would support it. I'm going to take the futures issue. As Jim Strain is here, he knows that quite a few years ago, about in the mid-'80s, we started a movement to what we felt would correct some of the inequities as far as the futures community on our market. And for all their regulations and all their policies and everything else that they did, we felt some things need to be corrected. I think we were probably not as successful as many people hoped we would be. There was people who felt that we should do away with futures entirely, and I think I went into it with open eyes, at least, feeling that we would not get rid of them, but we at least should correct some of the inequities. And I think we did accomplish some of those things, and that's to be judged by those who have seen what it was, or remember what it was prior to, or understand what we have today. The electronic trading device that is used so that we can record trades immediately, and so there can takes the possibility of fudging just a little bit on those away from those who would use it to their advantage. Many of the other things, as far as contract limits and those areas were addressed. Unfortunately, I think because of the liquidation aspect, in recent years they've gone and increased the trading limits and brought in the program traders, thinking liquidation would override the fact that we wouldn't have the volatility, but they didn't accomplish that. There is one thing coming up, and everyone that's interested in futures should be aware of this, and the fact that there's going to be some come down changes in the amount of contracts you could have in a spot month, and they would like to increase that, and your organization will, of course, be addressing that at the mid-year meeting and keeping track of that. The futures, I can tell you that the CME is very concerned about concentration, and it does certainly affect them, and of course their profitability, I'm sure, if they have a market that can be manipulated by those people processing our cattle. So there is concern on their part, and I think really they need to be really involved in some discussions that I hope eventually might lead to coming up with some sound, objective suggestions on how we improve our marketing structure so that it is fair to all those that raise cattle. Now, packer concentration. I think Herman probably gave you an excellent rundown of all the problems and of concentration. It hasn't come about just yesterday. The fact of the matter is it came about way back in the 20s. At that period of time, there was a problem, and eventually it was taken to court, and or at least through Congress, and found that there at that time was some market manipulation on the part of the Big Five, I believe it was at that time, and they broke the packing industry up, and at that time they had about 65%, I believe, of the total kill. Today, it is built back up. Now we have what Herman terms the Big Three, and I guess you would say they are the Big Three. Our figures are someplace between 78 and 80%, and if you figure in a national, why they're up someplace around 83 or 4. We have taken the steps as the National Cattlemen's Beef Association after February to be sure that we are starting to address the situation. We know that because of concentration and because of captive supplies, it does create at times in certain areas certainly an unfair trading advantage for the packing industry. I think we have had to specifically take a very objective approach to it. We don't own any cattle. We don't own any boxes of beef or anything like that. And anything we do has to come and be fact that is brought to us by our members and then addressed through our structure. And we have said, anybody that has any information that would lead them to believe that there's market manipulation or whatever, to bring it to us. We will see to it that the Justice Department gets it, that the Packers and Stockyards Administration gets it, and that when we will then take the procedure to move it through the proper channels so that it will be handled in a manner in which the producers can be treated fairly. So that's where we are on packer concentration. It's not that we support concentration, we certainly don't. We don't suggest also that vertical integration is good. We have had studies done, and I know they've been controversial about alliances and all those kinds of things. And at that time, I wasn't around MCA, but I certainly did see some things within those studies that showed the producer that they can gain information from a study that shows what their cattle might do or whatever. And I think we've all probably looked and taken our cattle to a feed yard and followed them on through the packing house. And as far as my knowledge goes, it was only for an informational thing, not a suggestion that vertical integration is good. It's just a way of gaining some more knowledge about your cattle and about the industry and where the dollars are and how you can get the most out of them. I think as far as vertical integration is concerned in our industry, I think it would be controlled, and I doubt very seriously if we would ever get to the point of the poultry people and or the pork people. For the simple reason we are controlled by a much larger capital investment. We're controlled much more by having to have a much more expanded land base in which to operate. And I do not believe that the packing industry themselves are interested in investing. And I think as long as we're together as an association and as an industry and are willing to run our cattle and operate in a very progressive management style, that we will not be subjected to vertical integration without our approval. So with that, I think that I've covered all of the areas of which you've asked me to, and be happy to answer the questions as the time arises. Thank you.